Dr. Jasmine Rossi hurried through the corridors of Olfactory Innovations, her arms laden with vials of experimental fragrances. At 32, she was the youngest lead researcher in the company's history, known for her uncanny ability to create perfumes that seemed to evoke emotions and memories with startling precision. As she approached her lab, a commotion from the adjacent room caught her attention. The door burst open, and her colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen, stumbled out, coughing and waving his hand in front of his face. "Marcus, are you all right?" Jasmine asked, setting down her vials to steady him. "Fine, fine," Marcus wheezed. "Just a slight miscalculation with the new pheromone enhancer. The fumes are potent." Jasmine peered into the lab, seeing a haze of pinkish smoke. "I'll help you air it out," she offered, reaching for the ventilation controls. "No!" Marcus said sharply, then softened his tone. "I mean, no need. It's, sensitive to air movement. I'll take care of it. You should get back to your work." Jasmine frowned, but nodded. Something about Marcus's behavior seemed off, but she had her own deadlines to worry about. She entered her lab, closing the door behind her. As she began setting up for her next experiment, a strange scent caught her attention. It was faint, but complex. Notes of sandalwood and citrus, with an undertone of something she couldn't quite place. Jasmine looked around, trying to identify the source, but found nothing unusual. Shrugging it off, she returned to her work. She was in the final stages of developing a revolutionary new perfume, one that promised to not just smell good, but to actually influence the wearer's mood. If she could perfect it, it would be the breakthrough of her career. Jasmine carefully mixed a drop of essence of jasmine, her namesake and favorite scent, with her experimental compound. As she leaned in to smell the result, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The room seemed to spin, and for a moment she could have sworn she saw colors swirling in the air around her. Then, as quickly as it had come, the sensation passed. Jasmine steadied herself against the lab bench, blinking rapidly. What was that? Had she inhaled too much of the compound? She was about to step outside for some fresh air when a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Marcus again, looking significantly calmer than before. "Hey, Jasmine, sorry about earlier," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Listen, I was wondering if you could take a look at something for me. It's a new fragrance I've been working on." Jasmine hesitated. She really should get some air, clear her head. But scientific curiosity won out. "Sure, what have you got?" Marcus handed her a small vial of clear liquid. As Jasmine unstoppered it and took a cautious sniff, her world exploded into sensation. Suddenly, she wasn't just smelling the fragrance, she was seeing it, feeling it, almost tasting it. Ribbons of color danced through the air, each one corresponding to a different note in the scent. She could sense the molecular structure, could almost manipulate it with her mind. "Jasmine? Jasmine, are you okay?" Marcus's voice sounded distant, muffled. Jasmine blinked, and the world snapped back into focus. The colors faded, but a new awareness lingered. She could still smell everything, not just Marcus's fragrance, but the individual components of every scent in the lab and the hallway beyond, even faint traces from the street outside. "I'm fine," Jasmine said slowly, her mind reeling. "This is interesting, Marcus. What exactly is in this?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Oh, just a basic floral blend. Nothing special. Are you sure you're all right? You look a bit pale." Jasmine narrowed her eyes. Marcus was lying. She could smell it. Literally. His anxiety was giving off a sharp, acrid scent that cut through his cologne. "I think I need to sit down for a moment," Jasmine said, buying time to process what was happening. "Why don't you leave the sample with me? I'll take a closer look when I'm feeling better." Marcus nodded too quickly, clearly eager to leave. As soon as he was gone, Jasmine collapsed into her chair, her mind racing. What had just happened to her? And what was Marcus really up to? One thing was certain. Her life had just taken a very strange turn. Little did Jasmine know, this was only the beginning of her journey as the Aromatic Alchemist. Over the next few days, Jasmine's world became a symphony of scents. Every inhalation brought a flood of information. The mood of her colleagues, the freshness of food in the cafeteria, even traces of conversations that had happened hours ago, their emotional residue lingering in the air. At first, it was overwhelming. Jasmine found herself ducking into supply closets or empty labs, trying to escape the olfactory onslaught. But gradually, she learned to control it, to focus on specific scents and filter out others. More than that, she discovered she could manipulate scents. With concentration, she could amplify or dampen smells, combine them in new ways, even create entirely new fragrances from thin air. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Through it all, one question nagged at her. What had triggered this change? Jasmine was certain it had something to do with the mixture of her experimental compound and Marcus's mysterious fragrance. But every time she tried to confront Marcus about it, he found an excuse to avoid her. On the 4th day of her new aromatic existence, Jasmine decided enough was enough. She arrived at work early, determined to confront Marcus and get some answers. As she approached his lab, a cocktail of scents assaulted her enhanced senses. Anxiety, excitement, and fear? Jasmine paused, focusing on the mix of odors. There was something else there, too, something chemical and vaguely familiar. She pushed open the door without knocking. Marcus jumped, nearly dropping the vial he was holding. Jasmine, he stammered. What are you doing here so early? Jasmine crossed her arms, fixing Marcus with a stern gaze. I think it's time we had a talk, don't you? About what really happened the other day, and what was in that basic floral blend you gave me. Marcus's face fell. He slumped into a chair, suddenly looking much older than his 45 years. I suppose there's no point in denying it anymore. You've changed, haven't you? You can smell things differently now. Jasmine nodded, relieved to finally be getting some answers. What did you do to me, Marcus? He sighed. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The pheromone enhancer I was working on, it was meant to be the next big thing in fragrance technology. Imagine a perfume that could literally make people fall in love with you, or a cologne that could inspire fear in your enemies. Jasmine's eyes widened. That's unethical, not to mention potentially dangerous. I know, Marcus said, running a hand through his thinning hair. But the potential was too great to ignore. I thought I had it perfected, but when you helped me that day, you must have inhaled some of the fumes. Then, when I gave you that sample later, it must have triggered a reaction with whatever you were working on. Jasmine felt a chill run down her spine. So what happens now? Am I stuck like this forever? Marcus shrugged helplessly. I don't know, this is uncharted territory. But Jasmine, think of the possibilities. With your new abilities, we could revolutionize the fragrance industry. We? Jasmine interrupted, anger rising in her chest. There is no we, Marcus. You experimented on me without my consent. You lied to me. And now you want to exploit my condition for profit? She stalked towards him and Marcus shrank back in his chair. Jasmine could smell his fear, sharp and pungent. With a thought, she amplified it, watching as Marcus's eyes widened in terror. Here's what's going to happen, Jasmine said, her voice low and dangerous. You're going to destroy all your research on this pheromone enhancer. You're going to tell management it was a dead end, and you're never ever going to experiment on anyone without their full informed consent again. Do you understand? Marcus nodded frantically, sweat beading on his forehead. Jasmine pulled back, letting the amplified fear dissipate. She felt a twinge of guilt for manipulating Marcus like that, but it was overshadowed by her anger and sense of betrayal. As she turned to leave, Marcus called out, Wait, what are you going to do now? Jasmine paused at the door, considering. What was she going to do? She had been given an incredible, if accidental, gift, but with it came great responsibility. I'm going to do what I've always done, she said finally. I'm going to create perfumes, but now I'm going to change the world, one scent at a time. With that, she left, her mind already swirling with possibilities. The Aromatic Alchemist was ready to begin her reign. In the weeks that followed her confrontation with Marcus, Jasmine threw herself into her work with renewed vigor. Her enhanced senses and ability to manipulate scents opened up entirely new avenues of fragrance creation. She started small, refining her mood-influencing perfume project. Where before she had been working blindly, relying on trial and error, now she could literally see and feel the emotional resonance of each scent she created. It was like composing a symphony but with smells instead of sounds. Her first breakthrough came in the form of a calming fragrance she called Serenity Now. One spritz was enough to soothe even the most frazzled nerves. Jasmine had to be careful with the formula, too strong, and it could potentially incapacitate someone with relaxation. The marketing team was ecstatic. Stress relief in a bottle, they called it. Orders poured in from high-powered executives, overwhelmed parents, and anxiety sufferers alike. Jasmine felt a sense of pride knowing her creation was genuinely helping people, but she didn't stop there. Next came Confidence Boost, a subtle cologne that inspired self-assurance and poise. It quickly became a bestseller among public speakers and nervous daters. As her reputation grew, so did the scope of her projects. A major airline commissioned a fragrance to help calm nervous flyers. A chain of gyms wanted a scent that would energize and motivate their patrons. Even the military expressed interest in her work, though Jasmine was hesitant to pursue that avenue. Throughout it all, Jasmine was careful to keep her true abilities a secret. As far as the world was concerned, she was simply an exceptionally gifted perfumer with an uncanny knack for creating effective scents. Only Marcus knew the truth, and he had kept his word, staying far away from his pheromone research. But as Jasmine's success grew, so did her ethical dilemmas. She found herself constantly questioning the morality of her work. Was it right to influence people's emotions even if it was ostensibly for their benefit? Where was the line between helpful and manipulative? These questions came to a head when she received a visit from a potential new client, a charming, well-dressed man who introduced himself as Victor Sykes. "Dr. Rossi," Sykes said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "I represent a consortium of interested parties who are very impressed with your work. We'd like to commission a special project." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "What kind of project?" Sykes leaned in conspiratorially. "Let's just say we're interested in the more persuasive applications of your fragrances, something that could, shall we say, make people more open to suggestion, more compliant." Alarm bells went off in Jasmine's head. She focused her senses on Sykes, catching whiffs of ambition, greed, and something darker beneath his expensive cologne. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sykes," Jasmine said, keeping her voice level, "but I don't create fragrances for mind control or manipulation. My work is about enhancing people's natural states, not overriding their free will." Sykes's smile faltered for a moment before returning sharper than before. "Come now, Dr. Rossi. Surely you understand the potential here. Think of the good we could do. Calming hostile crowds, promoting cooperation in difficult negotiations, and of course you would be handsomely compensated." Jasmine stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. "My answer is no, Mr. Sykes. I think you should leave now." As she showed him out, Sykes turned to her one last time. "You're making a mistake, Dr. Rossi. This offer won't come again, and you might find that saying no to us has consequences." The threat hung in the air, its acrid scent lingering long after Sykes had gone. Jasmine leaned against the door, her mind racing. She had known her work could be dangerous in the wrong hands, but this was the first time she had been directly confronted with those who would misuse it. As she returned to her lab, Jasmine realized she could no longer simply focus on creating pleasant fragrances. She needed to be proactive, to use her gifts to protect as well as enhance. The Aromatic Alchemist had a new mission, and the stakes were higher than ever. In the days following Sykes's visit, Jasmine found herself jumping at shadows. Every unexpected scent, every whiff of anxiety or aggression set her on edge. She began to sense she was being watched, catching traces of unfamiliar colognes lingering outside her apartment and near her favorite cafe. Determined to stay one step ahead, Jasmine threw herself into a new project. If Sykes and his consortium wanted to use scents for nefarious purposes, she would create something to counteract them. Late one night, as she worked alone in her lab, Jasmine finally achieved a breakthrough. She called it Clarity, a fragrance that could cut through any other scent-based influence, clearing the mind and sharpening the senses. It was her olfactory equivalent of smelling salts designed to wake people from any scent-induced stupor. As she held up the vial of clear liquid, a feeling of triumph washed over her. This could be the key to protecting people from scent-based manipulation. But her victory was short-lived. A new scent caught her attention. Sharp, metallic, with undertones of adrenaline and malice. Intruders. Jasmine quickly pocketed the vial of clarity and ducked behind her lab bench. Moments later, the door burst open. 3 figures in black tactical gear stormed in, their faces obscured by masks. "Find the formula," one of them growled. "Sykes wants everything." Jasmine's mind raced. She needed to get out to protect her work. But how? Then an idea struck her. Concentrating hard, she began to manipulate the scents in the room. She amplified the harsh chemical smells, creating a noxious cloud that filled the air. The intruders began to cough and gag. Taking advantage of their disorientation, Jasmine darted from her hiding spot and made a break for the door. But one of the intruders recovered quickly, grabbing her arm. "Not so fast, Dr. Rossi," he snarled. In desperation, Jasmine uncapped the vial of clarity and splashed it in his face. The effect was instantaneous. The man released her, stumbling back with a look of shock. What am I doing?" he mumbled, looking around in confusion. Jasmine didn't wait to see what happened next. She ran, her heart pounding in her ears. As she burst out of the building, she could hear shouts and alarms behind her. She ran until her lungs burned, finally ducking into a 24-hour diner. As she slid into a booth, trying to catch her breath, the gravity of the situation hit her. As Jasmine sat in the diner booth trying to calm her racing heart, her mind whirled with implications. Sykes and his consortium were clearly more dangerous than she had initially thought. They were willing to resort to violence to get what they wanted, and they wouldn't stop until they had her formulas. A waitress approached, concern etched on her face. "Are you all right, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." Jasmine managed a weak smile. "I'm fine, thank you. Just had a bit of a scare." The waitress nodded sympathetically. "Well, you're safe here. Can I get you anything? A cup of tea might help calm your nerves." "Tea would be wonderful, thank you," Jasmine replied, grateful for the kindness of strangers. As the waitress walked away, Jasmine took stock of her situation. She couldn't go back to her apartment. It was likely being watched. Her lab was compromised. She needed help, but who could she turn to? Then it hit her. Marcus. Despite their rocky history, he was the only one who knew about her abilities and understood the potential dangers of scent-based manipulation. Pulling out her phone, Jasmine hesitated for a moment before dialing. After 3 rings, a groggy voice answered. "Jasmine, do you have any idea what time it is?" "Marcus, I'm sorry to wake you, but I'm in trouble. Real trouble. I need your help." There was a pause, then a sigh. "Where are you? I'll come get you." 30 minutes later, Jasmine was in Marcus's car, recounting the events of the night as they drove through the empty streets. "My God," Marcus said when she finished. "I had no idea it would come to this. Jasmine, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." Jasmine shook her head. "We don't have time for guilt, Marcus. We need to figure out what to do next. Sykes and his people won't stop coming after me, and if they get their hands on my formulas—" "I know," Marcus said grimly. "We can't let that happen. But what can we do? We're just scientists, not whatever they are." A determined look settled on Jasmine's face. "We might not be fighters, but we have something they don't. We have the power of scent on our side, and it's time we used it." Over the next few days, Jasmine and Marcus worked tirelessly in a makeshift lab they set up in Marcus's basement. Using her enhanced abilities and their combined knowledge, they created an arsenal of scent-based defenses. There was Smokescreen, a fragrance that could disorient and confuse when aerosolized. Tracker, a scent so unique that Jasmine could detect it from miles away, perfect for marking objects or people they needed to follow, and they refined Clarity, making it more potent and longer lasting. But their masterpiece was something Jasmine called Essence of Truth. It was a subtle, almost undetectable scent that made it virtually impossible for someone to lie while under its influence. Jasmine hoped it would be the key to exposing Sykes and his consortium. As they worked, Jasmine also focused on honing her abilities. She practiced extending her scent range, learning to pick up traces from farther and farther away. She worked on creating scent illusions, making one place smell like another to throw off pursuers. Finally, after a week of intense preparation, they were ready to take the fight to Sykes. Using her enhanced senses, Jasmine tracked down Sykes's base of operations, a nondescript office building in the business district. Under the cover of night, she and Marcus approached, armed with their scent weapons and a plan. "Remember," Jasmine whispered as they neared the building, "we're not here to fight. We're here to expose them. Get in, find evidence, get out, and if we run into trouble." Marcus patted the canister at his belt. "Smoke screen. I remember." They made their way inside, Jasmine using her nose to guide them past security and through the maze of corridors. Finally, they reached a door marked Executive Suite. The scent of Sykes's cologne lingered here, mixed with something else, something artificial and vaguely familiar. "This is it," Jasmine said, her hand on the door handle. "Are you ready?" Marcus nodded, looking pale but determined. They burst into the room, Jasmine immediately releasing a cloud of essence of truth. But instead of finding Sykes, they were confronted with an unexpected sight. The room was filled with people, all wearing strange masks connected to small tanks. And at the center of it all stood Marcus, another Marcus. Jasmine's mind reeled. What is this?" The other Marcus smiled, but it wasn't the kind smile she knew. This was cold, calculating. "Ah, Jasmine. I was wondering when you'd find us. I must say, I'm impressed. You've exceeded all our expectations." The Marcus beside her grabbed her arm. "Jasmine, we need to get out of here. Now." But Jasmine stood her ground, her enhanced senses working overtime. She could smell the fear and confusion from her Marcus, the smug satisfaction from the other, and from the masked figures, nothing. The masks were filtering out her essence of truth. "Who are you?" she demanded of the other Marcus. "What is all this?" He chuckled. "Come now, Jasmine, surely you've figured it out by now. Your little accident in the lab? Not so accidental. We've been guiding your development from the start." Jasmine felt like the floor was dropping out from under her. "We? You're with Sykes?" "Sykes?" The false Marcus laughed. "My dear, there is no Sykes. It's all been a carefully orchestrated plan to push you to your full potential. And now, you're finally ready." He spread his arms wide, gesturing to the masked figures. "Welcome to the next stage of human evolution, Jasmine. With your abilities and our resources, we're going to change the world, whether it wants to be changed or not." Jasmine's mind raced. Everything she thought she knew had been a lie. But one thing was clear. She couldn't let these people win. In a flash, she uncapped her vial of clarity and splashed it on herself and her Marcus. The world seemed to sharpen, the lingering effects of any subtle manipulations falling away. "Marcus," she said, not taking her eyes off the imposter. "Remember when I said we weren't here to fight?" Marcus nodded, his jaw set in determination. "I changed my mind. Let's show these manipulators what the Aromatic Alchemist can really do." As chaos erupted in the room, Jasmine knew this was just the beginning. The real battle for the future of scent was about to begin, and she was ready to face it head-on. The next few minutes were a blur of action and sense. Jasmine and Marcus worked in perfect tandem, releasing carefully crafted fragrances to disorient and subdue their opponents. The masked figures stumbled about in confusion as smokescreen filled the air while Jasmine used her enhanced senses to navigate the chaos. The false Marcus barked orders, trying to regain control of the situation. "Don't let them escape. We need her alive." Jasmine felt a surge of anger. They had manipulated her, lied to her, tried to use her gifts for their own agenda. It was time to turn the tables. Concentrating hard, she began to weave a complex tapestry of sense. Fear, doubt, mistrust. She amplified these emotions in the room, targeting the masked figures. Simultaneously, she created an aroma of confidence and strength around herself and Marcus. The effect was immediate. The masked assailants began to turn on each other, their coordinated attack dissolving into chaos. Through it all, Jasmine made her way towards the false Marcus. He backed away, fumbling for something in his pocket. "Stay back. You don't know what you're doing." "Oh, I think I do," Jasmine said, her voice steady. "I'm putting an end to your plans." She uncapped her last vial, a concentrated dose of essence of truth, and flung its contents at the imposter's face. He cried out, clawing at his mask, but it was too late. The potent liquid had already seeped through. "Now," Jasmine said, her voice ringing with authority, "you're going to tell us everything. Who are you really? What was your plan?" The false Marcus's eyes glazed over as the scent took effect. We are the Olfactory Order, an ancient society dedicated to controlling the world through the power of scent. Your accident was orchestrated to create a powerful new asset for our cause." Jasmine felt a chill run down her spine. "And what was your endgame?" "Global dominance," he replied, his voice monotone. "With your abilities, we could create scents to control emotions, manipulate decisions, even alter memories on a mass scale. No army could stand against us. No government could resist." Marcus, who had been securing the subdued masked figures, joined Jasmine. "My God," he whispered. "The implications—" Jasmine nodded grimly. "We need to expose them. All of them." Just then, the door burst open. A team of people in hazmat suits rushed in, led by a familiar face, Agent Cooper from the FBI's Special Technologies Division. "Dr. Rossi," Cooper said, his voice muffled by his suit, "looks like you've had quite a night. Don't worry, we'll take it from here." As the FBI team began to secure the scene and detain the members of the Olfactory Order, Cooper pulled Jasmine and Marcus aside. "We've been tracking this group for years," he explained, "but we could never get close enough to gather concrete evidence. Your little stunt here has blown the whole thing wide open." Jasmine frowned. "How did you know to come here tonight?" Cooper smiled. "Let's just say a little bird tipped us off. A bird that smelled suspiciously like your tracker scent." Jasmine couldn't help but laugh. Her precautions had paid off in unexpected ways. As the night wore on and statements were taken, Jasmine found herself standing by the window, looking out over the city. Marcus joined her, his face etched with concern. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Jasmine took a deep breath, the myriad scents of the night filling her enhanced senses. "Now we make sure this never happens again. My abilities, our knowledge, it's too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands." She turned to Marcus, her expression resolute. "I think it's time the Aromatic Alchemist went public, not as a perfumer, but as a guardian. Someone who can protect the world from those who would misuse the power of scent." Marcus nodded slowly. "It won't be easy. There will be others out there like the Olfactory Order." "I know," Jasmine said, a small smile playing on her lips. "But that's okay, because now we'll be ready for them." As the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, Jasmine felt a sense of purpose settling over her. Her accidental powers had led her down a strange and dangerous path, but they had also given her the ability to make a real difference in the world. The Aromatic Alchemist was ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring, armed with the most powerful and underestimated sense of all: smell. As she and Marcus left the building, escorted by Agent Cooper, Jasmine caught a whiff of something on the morning breeze. It was faint but unmistakable, the scent of a new beginning, the end.